The June 13, a delegation from Nagaland visited the Pitts River Museum at the Oxford University in the United Kingdom. The visit was to request museum authorities to return a number of prized artifacts taken away by the British during the colonial era. And most importantly, the museum's collection also includes human skeletal remains, which are, in other words, also Naga ancestors, someone's loved one.
Forum for Naga Reconciliation is a group of people. This forum came into being somewhere in 2008, on March 25, 2008, when 39 organizations and churches came together in Nagaland to address the crisis, the Naga crisis that's going on.
Along with many indigenous human remains from around the world, the Americas, Asia, there was also a Naga skull that was set up for auction. Along with the FNR and Naga leaders and cultural groups, also the government of Nagaland, which sent a letter asking for kind of banning such auction, we put a stop to it. And that entire conversation entered the British Parliament.
We have been and we continue to be in deep crisis. So for the past 17 years or so, Forum for Naga Reconciliation, we consist of members from different communities. We come together and work for peace and reconciliation.
And I don't know what people would feel when they hear this, but it was as though our ancestors knew that we were there. The spirits knew that we were there. And so everyone, the Pitt Rivers Museum is ground floor and first floor, and it's a huge museum. And we were in 7-8 groups with lists from different parts of the Naga homeland looking at our belongings.
We are dealing not just with trauma of the past, but the impact and the ongoing trauma even now, which makes us experience deep emotions like grief, confusion, anger, frustration, so many emotions that we carry that can be manifested here and there.
Okay. Hello and welcome to The Wire. This conversation that we're going to have today, I can assure you, have not happened in mainstream media yet. So that way you are actually watching an exclusive. The June 13, a delegation from Nagaland visited the Pitts River Museum at the Oxford University in the United Kingdom. The visit was to request museum authorities to return a number of prized artifacts taken away by the British during the colonial era. And most importantly, the museum's collection also includes human skeletal remains, which are, in other words, also Naga ancestors, someone's loved ones. So this move was important, it was significant, mainly because, it was also an initiative towards decolonization and reconciliation with one's past. Something that is new, novel, not just in Northeast India, but perhaps also for a good part of Asia. So to discuss this important issue, I have with me Dolly Kikon. She is Professor of Anthropology and Director of the Center for South Asian Studies at the University of California, Santa Cruz. And Dolly has written extensively on human rights, militarization, and justice. She is a member of a research initiative called RRAD, which is mean Recover, Restore, and Decolonize. This initiative was constituted by the Forum for Naga Reconciliation. It's a body that works towards the repatriation of Naga ancestral human remains. Welcome to this conversation, Dolly.
Thank you.
We have one other person, who's an important voice, which is joining this conversation. That's Ellen Konyak Jamir. Ellen is Associate Professor of Christian Counseling and Psychotherapy at the Oriental Theological Seminary located in Nagaland. Trained in the United States, Ellen is a strong advocate of spiritual and mental well-being. She's also a member of the Forum for Naga Reconciliation, which is called FNR, and also the coordinator for the RRAD project initiative, or which is the Recover, Restore, and Decolonization Initiative. So welcome to this conversation, Ellen.
Thank you, Sangeeta.
And yeah, it is so nice to have both of you in this very important conversation. And I would like to start by, asking, maybe Dolly, you can start. What is FNR? Why was this initiative started? And from that, we saw these research initiatives stemming, this RRAD. What is it? Because it is for mainstream Indian audience. So I want a little time from you to just, describe this, please.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. And I would like to here say that Ellen is a member of the Forum for Naga Reconciliation and a very, very active, I think, visionary. And she is actually the right person to talk about the FNR. So I'm going to pass on that question to her. So Ellen, please.
Okay, yeah. Ellen, to you.
All right. Thanks, Dolly. We are both part of FNR members in a way. So yeah, Forum for Naga Reconciliation is a group of people. This forum came into being somewhere in 2008, on March 25, 2008, when 39 organizations and churches came together in Nagaland to address the crisis, the Naga crisis that's going on. As many people know, in Nagaland we've had this geopolitical crisis for more than 7 decades now, and so the consequences is that there are many factions fighting against one another. So we have been and we continue to be in deep crisis. So for the past 17 years or so, Forum for Naga Reconciliation, we consist of members from different communities. We come together and work for peace and reconciliation, primarily among the different political groups. And so because of our work with our communities in ushering in or working towards peace and reconciliation, this effort to repatriate the human remains also came to our attention. It was brought to our attention through our own professor, Dr. Dolly Kikon, somewhere in 2020, right after COVID, when the Pitt Rivers Museum was going through a tremendous change themselves. And so this repatriation initiative came into attention. So that's how we began the dialogue with the Pitt Rivers Museum. FNR, we realized that we need a separate group of people, mainly researchers, and so we formed the RAD team, which is Recover, Restore, and Decolonize team, in 2021. And we consist of members from institutions, churches, social activists, and we have come together to work on this process.
Amazing. This is such an admirable move. I would like to ask you one more thing, because we have this, there's one whole identity, which is the Naga identity, but then there are also so many groups within the Naga identity under that single umbrella. So how is that, the process taken forward to bring all the voices together, to make it a kind of a unified voice and say that we do need to do this and go ahead with that. So if you can just take our viewers through that process also a little bit.
Mm-hmm. FNR, we are in our approach, in our work, we always go for inclusivity, and we try to collaborate with all the sections of our society, with churches, civil organizations, institutions, and that has always been our method of working. And so even with the repatriation process, because the human remains of our ancestors, they consist of remains from different communities. And so it's very necessary for us to connect with the different, as we call ourselves, tribes here. We consist of various tribes. So from the initial period, we felt the need to go out to the different communities. And we've done a lot of groundwork over the past several years. Even before just this past month, we went and visited the PRM. So before this past 5 years, we've just been doing some groundwork here, going out to different villages, institutions, churches, visiting people, communities, and really engaging with our community here.
Amazing. I mean, like, finally, this coming together is so significant. I'll go to Dolly because she was, the forefront of this initiative also, in the sense that asking, bringing into the this whole thing to the attention of FNR. Dolly, if we talk about, say, UK, how many museums have these kind of artifacts, and how large is this collection, and which of these museums have the largest collection? Of course, we'll come to talking about going to the Fitz River, but if you can just give us a sense of what is the number and how widespread it is.
Thank you, Sangeeta, for the question. And I think in terms of, let me reflect a little bit more on the idea of the nation, the Naga nation. And for us, I think that's really key to understand that, we talk about different kinds of identities which are really post-colonial. And when we talk about the Northeast, especially, we tend to talk as though no one is in any kind of relationship with anyone else, right? So that's also kind of a militarized narrative, that the way the region has been written about and the way that we are understood through those writings, historical, colonial, and also militaristic security writings, is that every community is in silo and we have no relationship. I think contrary to that, when we talk about the nation from the people and the community's perspective, like the Nagas, we are very clear of who we are. I think today, no one can come and tell us that we are not Naga. So for us, it's very important that the self-identification of being a Naga and the idea of us as sovereign people since pre-colonial times is very strongly attached to our understanding, and I would say the Naga understanding of what is self-determination today. So if we look at that, to your question of how do we understand the collections in the UK, and I would say also across Europe, it is actually categorized as the Naga collection, right? And we have to understand that the Naga collections are different than the Indian collections. And so the categorization that has gone into it is also during a period of time, definitely of the colonial era, but it's also the time when the Nagas were never conquered and ruled. And this is a time when the Britishers are doing immense expeditions, burning our villages, killing our ancestors, stealing things away from the Naga homeland and bringing to Britain. And so, for example, when we say about Naga collections, the Pitt Rivers Museum in the UK has the largest Naga collection in the world, around 6,500. And since the museum was established in 1884, some of the collections have never been touched because, there's just no space in the museum to keep those things. And so even in 1884, when they were bringing and stealing our ancestral remains and bringing, that means humans and non-humans, they clearly categorized as the Naga people, right? And we were not tribes at the time. We were categorized as cultural group, as one. So I think it becomes really important. In terms of your question about the museums, Pitt Rivers has the largest collection, but when we went as the Naga delegation this time, Cambridge University, the British Museum, Horniman, the University of Bristol and Manchester came to meet us, the curators of these 5 museums across the UK, and they brought long catalogs both human and non-human remains to show us what they had in their collection. And I think this is just the beginning of learning about how Naga history and the homeland that we call the Naga homeland has been raided and things taken away. So I think this is really a moment for us to understand the process that we have opened. And it's not only for the Naga people. I think when Ellen and I were walking across with the Naga team in the Pitt Rivers Museum, we saw so many things from Assam, right? Belonging to the homes, belonging, let's say, to the different cultural groups. And I think this is kind of the beginning for other communities around to understand what has been done. And I'm glad to say that if the Naga people's visit to the UK and the work on repatriation is opening up a chance for us to really think about us as a collective nation, I'm glad that this conversation is taking place.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about, the widen the scope of this. But before doing that, I want to ask Ellen, how was the moment for you as a Naga to be going into that to these these museums, and also seeing these artifacts, mainly the human remains and all that. How was it for you as a Naga, and what was the moment? How was that moment for you?
Yes, this journey, we call it a journey of repatriation, the Naga pathway. And as I stated before, we've been working on this for the past 5 years. So prior to that, we had no idea. We had no idea. We had no knowledge that our ancestral human remains has been, or they have been exhibited or stored up in museums. And so we have been preparing ourselves to go to PRM, and we have been very fortunate to get the invitation from the PRM itself. And so we prepared, and as much as we prepared, when we got there and we're actually in the museum, I think it was an overwhelming experience for all of us. We knew that this was going to be like no other visit, and we prepared ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually. Yet when we got there, we cannot put into words how we felt. It was a very overwhelming experience, a mixture of heaviness of heart, excitement, anticipation, a lot of grief and sadness, to actually see those remains and to think that, they have been in this condition or away from our homelands for this many years or century, more than a century. So it was a very sacred moment for us, I would say, a sacred moment. And I think on retrospection, I feel that we were very blessed to be there. At the same time, we came back home with a huge burden, that this is an ongoing process and we have a lot more to accomplish.
I don't know whether I'm correct. I've heard that when the delegation went in, they sang these hymns, the local, there's hymns and songs and all that to remind. Did that happen?
Yeah, we prepared ourselves with sayings or songs in our own language. Yes, and we wanted to express to our ancestors, we believe that they can hear us, the spirits are still there, and that they can hear us. So we prepared ourselves as we would when we go to a funeral, let's say here in our own homeland, or when we're encountering the death, what we say, how we present ourselves. We did some of those rituals, yes.
Dolly, do you want to add something here? And how was it for you as a Naga too?
Yeah. So So the journey, and especially the meeting with the journey and the meeting with the ancestors at the Pitt Rivers Museum was really overwhelming, but also life-changing. I think as a delegation, we are still processing it. Yeah, it'll take time, right? It'll take time. It was a life-changing one for us. And, the day that we met the first encounter with our ancestral human remains was on the 9th afternoon. And on the 9th afternoon, and we prepared the 9th morning. We prepared the 9th morning with the declarations, and we first did a tour of the museum, and we were in different groups, and they had a list of all the Naga belongings that were on display in the museum, active display, not in storage. And so after that, we had lunch, and it overwhelmed us because it was almost something magical and extraordinary that was happening, because even before the curator would point out which was Naga, we knew it. And so in many cases, we were leading the curator, and we said, this is actually from this village, right? This is from this village. And so Ellen, for instance, was calling the curator and saying, this is from Wokching. And I was born in Wokching, and I know this. So there was almost kind of an instant connection. And, I don't know what people would feel when they hear this, but it was as though our ancestors knew that we were there. The spirits knew that we were there. And so everyone, the Pitt Rivers Museum is ground floor and first floor, and it's a huge museum. And we were in 7-8 groups with lists from different parts of the Naga homeland looking at our belongings. And
how large was the delegation?
The delegation, from the homeland, I think altogether, Ellen,
24 of us.
24
Yes,
people, and from different subgroups within the Nagas.
Yes. And for the FNR, I think we're clear in focusing on the ancestral human remains from where they were collected, so the villages and the cultural groups. So that was the first, So that was kind of the focus. So as we were looking at our belongings, every group who was inside on the morning of the 9th, Ellen, Ellen and I were in the same group, and we started talking to the curators as though these were taken from our house, as though when somebody comes to your house and you're able to explain it. So it was that, and we started teasing the curator. We said that you should employ us here so that we can explain these are our belongings. And it was almost kind of a magical thing happening, because all the belongings, they came alive. And I think when you talk about a Naga nation, Sangeeta, that is the connection, right? It was as though the idea of time and hundreds of years ago, all the connections disappeared, and we knew. And that is the very, very strong continuity that we have with the Naga past and our Naga history. The second thing that happened in the afternoon was magical, and I think the viewers must know. We prepared ourselves after lunch, and it was a very sacred moment. We made a single file, and as we went up, it was on the second floor. As we marched up, the 24 of us, it was a amazing, I think, presence. The museum was open. And it was a different staircase that was going to the room where our ancestors were all kept for our first encounter. The museum visitors who were there stopped, and they didn't know what was happening, but they knew that something was happening. So the chanting, the kind of the chanting went across the museum, and the singing went across the museum, and there was a deep sense of mourning and sadness that kind of like came upon the Naga delegation. And this is something even the curators and the entire Pitt Rivers Museum staff felt it at that moment. Mm-hmm. So we went up, we entered the room, and our elders and all the Naga representatives were there, started addressing the ancestors. We prayed, we sang, and these were not only Christian hymns. These are our traditional ancestral hymns that we still practice at times of our harvest, at times of our gathering. As you know, the Naga world, right? We think that it's very Christian dominated, but the way that we have engaged our ancestral practices into our everyday life is very strong. And of course, people go to the Hornbill to enjoy all that, but for us, the practice is done in a very different way. We don't do it for tourists, we do it for ourselves. And that was the moment we did it for our ancestors. Our elders who were there at the tribal council, leaders, they said their names, they introduced themselves formally, who they were, where they came from. They said the names of their fathers, their grandfathers. We still know the name of our villages, you know, Sangeeta, and that is the connection we have with our roots. We say the names of the rivers. Doyang has been Doyang, right? My village Singiki has been Singiki. Ellen's was born in Wokching, and that Wokching name is still there at Pitt Rivers Museum. And so we all felt that, and I think it was so powerful. It was so powerful, and like I said, we are still processing it. And I think this is the first time that Ellen and I are here on board.
I want to ask you, Dolly, one more thing, which is like, you know, normally what we see that Nagas have been headhunters and things like that. That's generally the narrative. But, you know, but these human remains are also people who were of loved ones, were kept at home. There is a tradition. Do you want to just quickly talk about that tradition too? Because I'm sure many people don't know that.
We had an amazing trip in to Mon, that's Ellen's ancestral homeland, and I think I'll call on her to say about that, because she speaks the language, and I think that journey was really unforgettable. And also, the fact that the Konyak people are always stereotyped. So I think, Ellen, you'll be able to tell that.
Yeah, I mean, there were quite a number of trophy heads among the remains that we encountered, but we also came to learn that there are some remains that might have been stolen or taken away because they were decorated once. And so from what we came to learn from some of our people when we visited the Mon area, it seems after the death, the loved ones or the family members will take the remains and treat them to preserve them. And they would decorate and keep them at a certain place. So when we showed the videos and pictures of the remains during our visits, somebody pointed out that this is some this remain could be of a loved one, a stolen one, something like that. Yeah, they pointed that out to us. So what we came to learn is that not all the remains are of trophy heads, but those there could be a number of them that have been taken away from either from the from homes or from those graveyards, or I don't know where else. Another thing we saw, if I may mention this time when we visited the museum, is that of an ang, a skull of an ang that had been tattooed. And so when we showed this picture to our people, what we came to learn is that we would not give away an ang's head. This probably could have been taken away. And so those are some of the things that we're finding out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting and very poignant, these kind of the way you have spoken about that. It's actually then amount to feel, your loved one, your memories, So those are very important. I want to ask also, what assurances, or if any, been given by these museums to return to Nagaland what belongs to them? Dolly, you want to take this up, or Ellen, any one of you can just...
Dolly, please. Yeah.
Okay. We have to understand that the Naga ancestral human remains are private property of Oxford University. Pitt Rivers Museum is an institution, it's a museum within Oxford University. So in principle, all ancestral human remains ethically should be returned to community, to their homeland. But here we are looking at a long bureaucratic process, a legal process, and finally the approval to release, to give us back the ancestral human remains. So I think this is a process that the Naga people will have to also seek the support of governments as the time approaches, and FNR and the community elders and the leaders will know what to do with that. We have to also understand that as we talk about the ancestral Naga human remains repatriation, Sangeeta, there is an ongoing debate in the British Parliament. And it started with the auction of human remains in October 2024. It was international news that was covered by the BBC, the CNN, and across all papers in India as well. Along with many indigenous human remains from around the world, the Americas, Asia, there was also a Naga skull that was set up for auction. Along with the FNR and Naga leaders and cultural groups, also the government of Nagaland, which sent a letter asking for kind of banning such auction, we put a stop to it. And that entire conversation entered the British Parliament. I think it is commendable, I would say, that the Naga people have been able to enter the debate in the British Parliament on record in terms of the campaign that we have done to stop and to call for the rehumanization of our ancestors. So as the repatriation has started, it should take place. There's no two ways about it. No ancestral human remains in the 21st century ethically should be in a museum for exhibition. I think what is important is to also recognize, for me, the third point, that's most important, that we have a forum like the Forum for Naga Reconciliation, prayerfully and sacredly led by leaders like Ellen, Dr. Wati Iyer, which really actually has the mandate of 39 Naga organizations. The ancestral human remains repatriation for them is only one part of it, Sangeeta. As you are aware, that Nagas are seeking healing and reconciliation on the land. So for me, as member of RAD, it is absolutely an honor and a privilege to even walk alongside them to do this work of healing and repatriation. And this is a Naga way of repatriation. Right? I think for the Australian Indigenous people, for the First Nations in the US, in Canada, their approach has been their approach. And this approach, the Naga repatriation approach, has been, as the FNR has said, with their facilitation, serving, listening, and also holding the sacred space to see what do we do with this. Because we have to realize we are dealing with the dead. We cannot come here with ego. We cannot come here with a research purpose. We cannot come here with an agenda to say, how do I enhance my political power or my visibility? What do I get? It is a sin. It is absolutely unethical for us to even step into the zone of repatriation with those human desires. So I think, how do we live behind? I feel really privileged that I have a friend and a fellow peer like Ellen, who's also a counselor, a healer, and also Dr. P. Nguli. We have two psychosocial counselors in the team, the FNR RAD team working on repatriation. And I think Ellen will be able to tell you about the trauma and the healing that all of us, including me as a Naga, require to do this work. So Ellen, please come in. You're an expert.
Yes, Ellen, it's very important, because I want to ask you about this. How important, how significant is healing the generational trauma, which I was called, within a community which is located in a conflict area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for the question. And this is a difficult, difficult question to respond to, but something that is very necessary for us to look into. When we talk about generational trauma, this is a term that I think people like us in our context, we don't realize that we are going through or we experience this generational trauma. What is trauma? Trauma is something, an experience that's distressing, and it can be past trauma, it can be present trauma, and it can also we can experience it consciously or unconsciously also, so there are many aspects of generational trauma. Now, when we look at this repatriation process from the lens of our repatriation journey, there are members within our own team whose family members or whose community have been directly affected by past trauma or wars that happen in their region. Whereas there are also members within our own group who were affected probably indirectly, and also during our research process, we have heard people say, what's past is past, there is no need to bring back the remains. What good would it do? Or what's the use of bringing the remains back? Or why would you look into the past that is meaningless now? And those are some of the perceptions of people. And so what we realized as we were standing in that room on the second floor in PRM, for most of us, I think we realized that these bones or these remains of our ancestors, they're not mere bones, dead bones. These bones or these remains tell the story of our people. It struck us, and they reminded us of because in the catalog, when we look at their remains, you see the names of where they came from, the village names, some village that are non-existent even now in our current homeland, or the description of the remains. All those are written, and it makes us wonder, oh my goodness, like Dolly was saying earlier, how I could connect to places like Wak Ching because I was born there, how I could connect to places like Chi because we went there and I've been there several times. And so how can I ignore these connections that I see, or this identification that we're making, and to imagine that how in the world this remains landed up here. So I think it like I said earlier, it was a very heavy experience for us. There were so many things to process and to feel, and we don't even know how to feel sometimes, So we went through all that. So I'll give you another example. When we were in Mon area, we went to Longwa intentionally because that is a place I wanted to show my rad friends. It's a place of international interest, and why it is because the international border of Myanmar and India runs through the house of our chief. It's right there. You can see it for yourself with our own eyes. And so our people, they have been separated. So this is something that was done during the colonial times, or even before that. I mean, during that time. And so there are many cases of our people being scattered, arbitrary boundaries that have been drawn that separates our people. And so we are dealing not just with trauma of the past, but the impact and the ongoing trauma even now, which makes us experience deep emotions like grief, confusion, anger, frustration, so many emotions that we carry that can be manifested here and there, in different situations. So I don't know if I'm explaining well, but it's a lot of things that we carry within ourselves, and there is a need for us to address these deep emotions that we go through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we talk about even now what is unfolding in Manipur, so many people have been displaced. Over 70,000 people have lost their home and earth. Think of I mean, like they've not even got time to think about what has hit them. They're basically looking at living life, each day as it comes, and that's true for both Kuki and the Meitei community were affected. So this is what we have seen in terms of ethnic conflict and all that in the Northeast. We don't even talk about the need for healing, the need for the reconciliation. So that's why I think this initiative is a one of a kind and very important. It's a kind of a trendsetter, a path. It shows that path, Dolly, I want to take you back to what you were saying about the, when you were visiting, when the team was visiting these museums in the UK, they said there was so much from Assam too, and we have this. There has been a demand within the Assamese society also to bring back the Vrindavani Vastra, which they believe that was woven at the direction and behest of our great Saint Shankar Deva. Though the piece in British Museum, which has been, I think they've studied the time of that piece of cloth, and they say that it belongs to, I think, 1680, though Shankar Deva passed away in 1568. So it also shows that he perhaps also started this whole concept of, sacred weaves. And that's perhaps was also the reason that that long big piece that is there in British Museum was found in a monastery in Tibet, which was actually picked up from Tibet. So these are things that, and then parts of it are there in the Chepstow Museum in Wales, also Victoria and Albert Museum. And so many such museums have these things that have been taken away from the Northeast, from Nagaland, from Assam and other regions. I saw that movement that was started, and they were all hoping that the government will be the intermediary for it. I remember when I had written my book on the Assamese community in 2023, noted Assamese commentator and journalist Kanaksen Dekat said, he told me in a telephonic interview in 2020 that in 2014, I think he had written to our current Prime Minister Narendra Modi when it just come, that if we can't get it back, can you just make it a part of that UN podium where they keep things which are representative of the country, as India representative. And I think he didn't even get a reply, that letter. But the emotions and that its whole love and that devotion, all of these things, the memory, the need for reconciliation, need for getting one's heritage back is still very potent and strong in the Assamese society also. So I could very well connect with you when both of you were talking about this whole, the other part, of it. It's not just the going and seeing, and also it's so much more than that. So I want to ask you, Dolly, the government we've been depending on, but it has not happened. But this model that we are seeing, can we expand this model? Can we have this as a kind of a good practice? Perhaps not only for the Northeast, maybe also for the rest of Asia, where I don't think that this whole decolonization process has even taken place.
Definitely, Sangeeta. And I think the Naga approach and the Naga pathway to repatriation is one that is founded on a community-led, listening to one another, introspection, and mutual respect. That's why it took us 5 years. 5 years for us to go back to our elders, to go back to community. We didn't even know in the middle of it whether we would have the strength. And FNR held us together and encouraged us how to go about this. One, patience. Second, to understand in the Assam context, what does decolonization mean? If it is led by people in power who are ego-driven and want this for affirmation of power, repatriation never takes place. Even if it takes place, it is for self-glory. Shankar's life as a poet, saint, and as a reformist is so central, even today, to an Assamese identity. One, that is connected with land. Second, with respect. And third, with honoring, right? Honoring human dignity. And he was born around a time, I think, when it was really pre-colonial, we can say, right? In terms of diversity, in terms of trade, in terms of movement. And he died much before the Britishers came to conquer Assam, to quote unquote discover tea. And so I think what we are looking at, if I may say, because I'm zooming in here from Assam, and part of my life is also here in Guwahati.
You're a daughter-in-law of Assam, that's also very important.
So if I can,
a daughter of Nagaland and a daughter-in-law of Assam, so you're a complete package from Northeast India.
So if I can speak to my beloved Assamese students, young leaders, emerging visionaries, repatriation, and especially of this sacred kind, needs to be done prayerfully if they remain disconnected from what's happening in Assam, from the violence that's happening, the inhumanization that's happening. It will not find a purpose, because you have to understand, for the Naga people, it's not only about bringing our ancestors back, it is the journey that should change us. Pretty much it's about life, right? The purpose of living, it should change us. It should make us better human beings. And so for the Naga people as well, we are hoping that repatriation makes us better human being, makes us serve our communities and the world, and shows a sacredness to an indigenous process. And definitely with the people of Assam as well, with all the colonial violence that you all have gone through, the dispossession of land, this is a moment. And I say, as part of RAD, that the 21st century is really a century of repatriation. So how do we understand? How do we understand this process? I think Ellen is there, and all our friends are there in the Naga homeland. And Ellen, we would be very happy, isn't it, on invitation to come and then to speak to our Assamese brothers, sisters, and our elders here in Assam.
Oh, lovely, this is. Yeah, I mean, this is just, and in true manner, it's holding each other's hands. This is amazing. I'll have to end this conversation, and thank you both, Dolly Kikon and Ellen Konyak Jamir, for joining this conversation, and for not only holding up the need for decolonization and reconciliation with the past, but also for showing the path to how to do it, And a big thank you to the viewers for staying with us through this discussion and for supporting independent media.